This episode, fall tips. Well, folks, the days are getting shorter and the temperatures are dropping. Ew, is what I say. But anyway, be that as it may, it is time to break out the old fall tips, getting the house ready for winter. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Fall Tips. And to help me explain, I am here with my ever faithful co-host and old buddy John.
Cheerful today.
And cheerful.
Hey, yes.
Cheerful. I forgot about that. Wow, that's exciting. My old buddy John. Johnny, what has been going on this week?
Well, it has been a little bit of fall in the air. I think right now it's a little bit of false fall, but I've been working on all my pavers outside and cleaning them up, and we'll talk about that. But it's been just a lot of things getting prepped up here.
Yeah. I am starting my list. But you know what? Before we jump into the main topic, just want to do a quick PSA. We want to mention to all our listeners that we do have a YouTube channel, and we would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is Handyman Pros Radio Show. Big surprise there. But if you would like and subscribe, if you want to see us in person, you can see us. It is a face for radio kind of situation, but we do have some graphics and things
persevere,
that we show. Yeah, persevere. Don't worry about it. And two, if you haven't liked and subscribed on the podcast, do that as well while you're at it. Send us reviews as well. It just really helps us out. We're trying to get the word out. We really want people to understand this information, and hopefully we're helping you save some time, money, and aggravation. And that's just basically our goal, and we want to help spread the word. So with that, Johnny, fall tips besides doing pavers. We do a fall tip. We do tips shows usually a couple times a year. We did our summer tips. They just released. We're a little late on that one. Want to apologize for that, but
well, you're either early for Christmas or late for Christmas. One of those things.
Oh, Johnny,
things.
we can do the Christmas show now.
Right.
Anyway, with that, yes, folks, if you haven't figured it out, this is a very conversational type show. And sometimes we get off on slight tangents, but we've worked on that very hard. Anyway.
Yeah, let me say this, Larry, because, when the people that are listening or the people that are watching this, this isn't, the professional shows of, professional show. It's just you and I talking here like we are on the phone a lot of times. So.
Yes.
Now we're just doing it in front of a webcam.
And in front of a microphone and a webcam. Yeah. And it's important stuff, because what y'all don't know is John and I talk probably almost every day, and we just go through what things we see, what things we don't see, what are the tips, what are the things that, what drove us crazy this week, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And these fall tips are things that through the years, and I hate to say that now, but we've learned a whole lot of things about winterizing your home and things like that. We both grew up in places where it's really cold. We now live outside Atlanta, Georgia, where it's not really cold. So for us, this is we're recording this in early September, and it's not yet getting really cold, but I do remember that, gosh, after Labor Day, it was pretty much time to get set up for winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much time to get set up for winter. And one of the things that we were discussing is that for a lot of these, there's a lot of tips that we're going to give you here. And one of the things is you don't want to throw them all into one weekend. So we were trying to do this as giving you more or less a checklist that you can work on through the next series of weeks before the snow actually flies, which, depending on where you live, could be next week, or it could be, many weeks down the road.
Many times in October in Chicago.
Many times in October in Rochester as well. I remember trick-or-treating. And so we always used Halloween as kind of the benchmark. I've trick-or-treated in short sleeves, and I've trick-or-treated in snow boots. So you tell me, right? Just depends, right?
Yep.
Just depends. So We're going to start off with some things that you need to winterize. This is a lot of your outdoor things, and so we don't talk much about gas engines and that sort of thing. We thought we might throw out a few things for particularly your small gas engines, your lawnmowers, your weed eaters, your that kind of stuff. John, you want to take a run at that? You're more the motor guy than I am.
Well, what I suggest, and one of our listeners had written in, I think, an email about was they were interested in automotive and stuff like that. So maybe we talk a little bit more about that in some upcoming shows and things like that, because we both have been involved in a lot of that, obviously. But anyways, for the engines and things, what I like to do is I like to put in a stabilizer into the gas.
Yep.
Into especially you folks that really wouldn't run these things for a long time. So if you live up in a really cold area, and you're not going to run your lawnmower for 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's good to throw a little stable in the gasoline, and just to keep the gunk out of there and the gas fresh and things like that.
And that should be non-ethanol gasoline, by the way, for small engines.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I've got a lot of problems right now with things that it's funny that that the gasoline caps on my small equipment, especially like my chainsaw, have swollen up to the point that I had to use a wrench to get them off.
Ooh,
because of that.
ouch.
So I had to go in there and trim it down, physically trim it down, and now it works. But I'm noticing that in my pressure washer too, because what it does is, a lot of folks if you look down and you look in the manual, it'll tell you how to winterize your equipment. It's a good thing to do. Now what I do is I run let's say my pressure washer. It's got a valve on it that'll turn the gasoline off to the carburetor, so that you can actually run the carburetor dry. So you don't leave any gasoline in there, which will gunk the jets up and things like that. And then you're like, man, here we go. So
here we go. That's right.
that topic's for another day of how to fix all that. But, so that's what I like to do. I like to clean them all up. I like to oil them all up, especially my chainsaw and things, the bars and everything. So just to rust, I use WD-40 and I spray it on there and just kind of just lightly wipe it and leave it a little film of oil on it. Put it away.
Yeah. And do you ever spray, when you were up north, did you ever spray a little oil up in the cylinder heads, like take a spark plug off and just put a little oil in?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
We did too, as well.
Yeah, you just a little bit, not to hydrolock an engine.
No.
So,
we always use WD-40 because we knew that wouldn't hydrolock, and you could just spray it in and it would keep the rust off.
Right.
And then it also burns. So it makes for a hard start, first time up, but it only takes a few seconds to get that stuff out of there.
Or a lot of times what we used to do was fog the engine, right?
Yep. Or fog the engine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just let it run and pour a little oil or something into the carburetor and fog it up and then turn it off.
Yeah.
When it starts burning.
So this is just advice for any of your small gas engines. So your chainsaw, your snowblower, or I guess your snowblower, you would do this in the spring, but this time of year, of course, on the converse side, it might be time to get the snowblower out and make sure it runs. Make sure you get all. That's our second tip, so we'll work on that one in a second. But this is good for anything. Your line trimmer, any gasoline engine that you're not going to use for several months between now and springtime. Any of these tips will work for any of those particular pieces of equipment. So it's just good advice, I think. Anyway, John.
Yeah. No, and it's going to save you a lot of aggravation when it comes time to use them again.
Absolutely.
I will tell you that. Now I don't run into that problem in the warmer climate as much, because I can use these. I actually wind up using stuff pretty often down here, even through the winter.
Right.
Not my lawnmower so much, but a lot of some other things. But you folks that are living in those colder climates, when those tools and those machines really go dormant for a while, you need to take care of them, because I will also say that the changes in temperature will cause a lot of condensation.
Yep.
And you want to be aware. You want to be aware of that.
Yeah, we learned that from aviation, right, John? You always check your fuel tanks because of condensation.
Oh yeah.
You're always looking for a little bit of water in the tanks, and
Remember
that's just
that going up and draining the
at
underneath the
draining a
wing?
little. Yep,
Yep.
sure enough. Yep,
So
every time. So it happens, and it happens. Boats too, same thing. If you have your boat, make sure you winterize your boat, and go through all of that stuff. You get a either yeah, the
yeah.
oxymoron, marine mechanic, but just make sure that you do winterize your boat as well. Anything that's outside, it needs to be winterized. We're really lucky here in that we only have a couple of days a year that we need to worry about freeze issues. So, that's really fortunate. But some of these other issues are pretty good. Now, I use my lawnmower all year because I have a bagging attachment. So actually in the wintertime, about once January or so, I always run it across the lawn just to pick up leaves and
Yeah.
trash. But
Right. Right.
but that, yeah, for us, I mean, our short season is short. It's a month, maybe two at the
Yeah.
outside edge. So most of the stuff is going to be okay down here. But boy, you're not kidding. We used to put our lawnmower away. Gosh, I'm going to say probably October. Just first week of
Yeah.
October, maybe. Just kind of depended on the season.
Yep.
But man, it didn't see the light of day till May.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
long time. That's a long
Yep.
time. So we understand. We've been there. We've lived that life. Folks, it's great living in the South. But anyway, be that as it may. Johnny, what else do we got? Oh, here's one that I always love. Drain your garden hoses. Even in the South, drain your garden hoses every once in a while.
Yep.
You know what? Take them off the spigot, put one end downhill or as downhill as much, lift that hose up over your head and coil it up over your head so the water drains out. Because it only takes one freeze to bust that freaking hose. And it's great if you want to spend extra money, but I am too frugal to do that when I know the cause, which is usually I've
Right.
left
Yeah.
the darn thing hooked up and I didn't drain it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pretty simple fix, really simple fix, but you have to remember to do it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
give us another one, Johnny.
I'm going to now one thing that I probably will not use for a little while is a grill. So my grill, I'm gonna clean that thing up, and I'm gonna use it now for a while. But after that, there will be a pause, and I'm not gonna use that grill. But I do clean it up in the fall and then put it away.
Yep.
And I do keep my eye on the weather forecast, because if there is once it starts to freeze, then I'm really motivated to do the garden hose. I've got a connection that runs underneath my deck that I need to drain out. I clean up the grill. So just to kind of reiterate what you were just saying, it's a good practice to do. And actually, I take the cover off the grill in the spring or the next time I use it. Man, ready to go.
Yep. So yeah, good cleaning. If you have a lot of steel parts in there, you might take some vegetable oil again for rust preventative, and don't use WD-40. It'll give your food such a great taste. But vegetable oil does the same thing, right? It's exactly the same thing. You
Yep.
can get spray, you can get spray variety if you want, or you can just rub it on with a cloth. But that's just going to protect your grill and have it ready to go. And it might, it'll burn off when you go to use it, maybe a little bit, but it's gone in 2 minutes, and but it does stop things from rusting, so it's always a good thing. Two, if you're going to store your grill inside, this is more if you're outside, right? If you're in really cold climates, make sure you take the propane bottle off. Don't leave a propane bottle inside, because of just if you ever
Yeah,
if you
don't
ever
do
get
that.
a leak,
Yeah, don't do that,
if you
folks.
ever get a leak, of course propane
Yeah.
is very explosive and
Yeah.
can go boom boom.
Yeah.
But just cover up your valves too. Just take a plastic bag, wrap them around the valves. Just keeps gunk from getting in there, because it only takes a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out why doesn't it work right. And so just take a plastic bag. If you unhook your tank, take a plastic bag, put it around there, put a rubber band on it, you're good to go. It's just going to keep any trash from getting into the valves, stuff like that. Just, simple things. These are simple things. But as a combined thing, all of this is kind of a lot. So what's another one, John? Let me see. Oh, weather stripping. We talk about weather stripping every year, but fall time is the time. So all of those places that you felt cold spots last year, John, which you did.
Oh yeah, yeah. What I did, I think I mentioned this on a previous episode, was I took some. I'm looking around for them, the sticky pads, and I put them all around where the cold air was coming in.
Yep.
And I went about after the freeze that we had. fixing all those areas, which
Sure.
were numerous. I
Which
had
were
I actually had some siding that was separating underneath my deck that was letting in a whole lot of cold air, and I just went in there and foamed it all in because nobody sees it anyways.
right,
But
right.
that was the source of my frozen pipe in
So
the
John's
basement.
referring to, I have to predicate this. So John was referring to last fall or last winter, we had a really hard freeze. It was in single digits, which does happen here in Atlanta about every 25 years, believe it or not. But we were down into the single digits. And of course, John and I both, we lived in places where single digits were not uncommon anyway. But for most people here in the South, I'm just going to say in the South, single digit territory is really unknown. It's unknown. So
Well, it's funny. Yeah, you're right, Larry, because and a lot of people actually have moved down here to get away from that, and they found themselves back in it.
yeah, and they found themselves back in it.
And I
But
will. And go ahead. I'm sorry, Larry, but the homes weren't designed down here.
for single digits, they were designed for 30, degrees or so. And so there's some steps that you have to take if you live in the South when it's really bitterly cold like that. That up north you generally don't worry about because the homes were. It's a different set of codes. It's a different set of insulations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to get into that, but still, because y'all in the north are like, yeah, so what? And we're like, well, it's called broken pipes, and lots of them if you're not careful. So anyway, there's a whole series of things. But one thing too, on just back on weather stripping, one thing is like if you're looking at doors and windows, and particularly at night, if you turn the lights out or if you turn the lights on, if you can see light underneath your door, underneath your windows, out around the edges, you need to put some weather stripping in. And really common door seams or door strips are really common for getting weak, and they let a little light in, and you would be amazed how much energy you'll save just by replacing those door strips. So you might think it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. And same thing on windows and anywhere else too. So check your weather stripping. Fall's a good time to do it because it's starting to get cold, and you actually should do it in the South. You should do it before air conditioning season, but it doesn't really matter as long as you do it at some time or another. It's very, very helpful. So that's weather stripping. What's another one we've got, Johnny?
Well, the other thing was that now we did talk about the engines and stuff, but if you do have, if you need to look at like your snow blowers and things like that. Now's the time to do it because of lead time.
Lead time on repairs.
If you have to repair it, whether you're going to do it yourself or you have to have a professional do it, before they get stacked up with people just finding out that things don't work when they need to work, you might want to just take a look at those things now. Whether that's your plow trucks, your snow blowers, your whatever.
Shoot, check your shovels, man. Make sure you got your snow shovels and you know where they are.
There you go.
The last thing you wanted, here's the deal, right? So we worked my dad owned a bicycle shop and we did outboard motors as well. So boats and bikes, right? And every year in the fall time, how many times did we get bikes and boats in for repairs for the next year? Never. When did we get them? We got them on the first nice weekend. After the first nice weekend in the spring, it was like a deluge.
My tires are flat.
All you name it. You name it. It didn't matter. When can you get it done this week? Well, I could, except you're now 700.
Yeah, and also it's going to be a premium charge.
Back to the pricing triad is exactly what it is. But take it in now, and I always do it this way. I explain to people, like here in the South, like if I'm going to have my boat worked on, for example, I tell them now, and I take it in this time of year, and I tell them, look, I'm really not going to need this till spring, but don't drag your feet either, because I found some of these guys drag their feet. Like, why are you dragging your feet? I brought this thing to you 2 months ago. Should be done. Right. So, but it's easier to follow up now because they're not slammed, and you can get on them and get it done. And particularly, the last time when you want to actually replace or repair your snowblower, or we used to have an old plow truck and it was the same thing. We didn't want the plow truck to not work when it snowed. So we always spent in the fall, and this was an old plow truck, and that's all it did was plow snow at the house. But we always checked it out in the fall, always, always, always. It was just a project, and we'd make sure that the hydraulics worked. We'd make sure that the engine ran. We
Yeah.
just
How
did
many
all
how
the
many clutches did you put in that thing?
It's funny you should ask.
Yeah.
So this was a 1964
Yeah.
Scout,
Yep.
right? All-wheel drive Scout. The way between clutches and brakes, we really didn't use them because the way we stopped it was we dropped the plow, and that stopped it, believe it or
Yeah.
not, because the brakes didn't work. Dad didn't want to put any money into it, and I don't blame him. I mean, this was a vehicle we used on a bad year. We'd use it 10 times, and that was a bad year. And we didn't have a lot of. He didn't want to put a lot of money into it. I don't blame him. But we always made sure that it ran. I think I don't know if we ever put a clutch in it. I know we never put brakes in it because we just dropped the plow. Even when we'd use it in the summer, we'd drop the plow. It stopped.
Yeah.
We weren't driving it on road, so it wasn't like it needed to be, perfect. But yeah, it was, and it was kind of a Fred Flintstone kind of vehicle because the floorboards had rotted out.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah, no,
so
I understand.
anyway, yeah. Anyway,
At some point we'll talk about that.
yeah, it was interesting to say the least. It was pretty cold in the wintertime, but anyway, be that as it may. One other thing, one thing I always like to say as a tip: if you live in icicle country or snow country, and you do have a central air conditioning unit outside, sitting outside, take a piece of plywood or some kind of hard surface and stick it out over the top of your unit. Don't think it's a great idea to fully enclose it because obviously if you fully enclose it, what happens is you create a nice environment for rodents like mice and rats and stuff, squirrels, whatever, chipmunks, and they'll go in there and nest. But if you just put something over the top, it's going to stop excessive snowfall or icicles from damaging the top of your unit. And really, I mean, really cheap. Just take the old scrap piece of plywood, put it over the top, and it just keeps, anything, tree branches, all the stuff that falls off your roof now no longer hits your HVAC unit. So, and we just had one here where we had a big straight line wind event fall through and a tree fell on it and it crushed the unit. And that was a lot of money. I'm not going to lie, a piece of plywood would not have stopped the tree that fell on it, but they're more sensitive to damage than you think. So take the easy precaution and do that. So do we have any more? Johnny, how many more do we have?
No, we've got a few more that we kind of listed out here. It might be a good, and this is one of the things that a lot of people don't do. And it is a little bit tricky, and you can learn how to do it. Maybe look on YouTube or ask a professional if you're not. Is to remove the sediment out of your water heater. It might be a good time to do that.
It's a good time to do that. Yeah, about once a year you should take the sediment out, and basically all you're doing is on the bottom of your water heater there's a drain, hook it up to a hose. It depends where your water heater is, but I take a long hose and put it outside, turn it on, and just watch what comes out. You can collect it in a bucket if you'd like, but there's always some gunk that's in there. And this will extend the life of your water heater. Plus, it actually gives you a little better heating capacity, largely from the fact of it doesn't displace as much water. And it depends on your municipal water system and that kind of thing. But we've seen, gosh, John, what's the deepest you've seen? I've seen people take out 2-3 gallons worth of muck out of the bottom of them.
It gets pretty bad.
And that's 2 or 3 gallons of hot water that you don't have to use. So when you drain these things off, along with extending the life of your hot water heater, it actually creates a little bit more. Now, hopefully there isn't that much in your system, but it just, again, it depends on your source, your water source.
I'll just caution you that when you do that, you really check that out before you go do that, because that's hot water and
it's
pressure.
hot water, yes, and a little bit of there is some pressure there too. So there's all kinds of
one of the things that you put down here, which is a good point, is to clean out weep holes in
weep holes. Yes,
I have seen these things get clogged up, especially over the summer, like a wasp nest or a bee will get in there and they'll start building something. And then when those weep holes, and folks, what the weep hole is it goes through the brick, and you'll see them if you're looking for them pretty low on your foundation.
Yep.
And it's meant
they're above windows usually too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's meant to circulate air behind your brick, because brick is porous.
Brick is porous.
And you need to get all the moisture and everything out between the brick and the the structure itself. So I've seen these things clog up. I've seen people with a lot of problems on the inside of their house. I actually fixed up. One of these days I'll pull up some pictures of the repair that I had to do on a really nice house, but the weep hole was clogged up.
Yeah, and it was caused from that. Yeah, my experience here, weep holes particularly now on windows, they're down at the bottom corners of the windows, and just take a little air gun if you have one and just blow them out. And that weep hole is basically the water comes down the glass and it gets caught between the glass and the frame, and it just weeps. It literally weeps out. It'll run out when it really rains hard. In the bricks, what we see, at least what I see here in the South, particularly here around Atlanta, is there's a particular bug called a mud dauber. It's a type of wasp, and it just loves to get into narrow places and fill it up full of mud, and literally mud dauber, and they nest that way anyway, blah, blah. We're not going to get into an entomology on it, but you do need to clean them out. Simple way I found is just take a 1/4-inch drill bit and just run that drill in and out of there. It cleans all that muck and gunk out, and it really is simple. Don't go too deep, by the way. You'll go into the siding of the house, but you can figure it out. I mean, it's really simple, and that cleans it out, and you're good to go. And then you can blow it out with a little air if you'd like. But yeah, you've got to get those cleaned out every once in a while, because as John says, and it's true, the moisture gets up in behind the house, and you need a place. It's not a place. You need a way for it to just normally ventilate itself out. So,
and I'll just add. Caution out there that if you have a sprinkler system, don't let it hit your brick.
Dude, good advice. Yes, because brick is porous, right?
Especially when the weep hole is clogged.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're in a nice house and the wall boards on the inside are starting to, where's all this coming from? Yeah.
Yeah, why do we have all this mildew on the inside of the house? Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Fall time always, as we always say, time to check drainage around the house and also clean your gutters. One and kind of part and parcel of the same thing, but clean your gutters, check your drainage. Drainage needs to be, Johnny?
Drainage needs
away from the house.
Always.
Away from the house.
And it's funny, after a while, it all seems to start to come back to the house unless you're on a slope somehow, but it just seems like because of the way the water runs off your gutters and stuff like that, it'll start digging a little trench around the foundation of your house. So just be aware of that.
Be aware of that. Easily fixed. Just get some fill dirt and just backfill it. And very, very simple.
And most of the problems that you and I see come from when the water is in the basement and stuff comes from that.
From that, yeah,
and that's as as simple as it gets. But
yeah, about 8.5 times out of 10. That's all it is. It's just literally it's just the wrong direction. It just comes at the house instead of away from the house, and it's really simple to fix. It's really, really simple. So check the drainage on your house. It's that time of year, fall time, and if you live in snow country, you're going to want to do it because you do not want that in the wintertime. No, because that turns it's bad.
Yeah, sometime we'll have to address living up north and ice dams and stuff like that in your gutters and underneath your roof. You folks up there, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do. Unfortunately,
it's a mess.
So it's a mess. What else we got, Johnny?
Well, the last thing here is a point is now's a good time to take a look and look at your fireplace, especially any buildup that you have up in the chimney.
Yep, look for creosote. So, how do you do that? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, you can do it with a flashlight. I mean, I just always looked up in there, and you could see how it was building up. That was about as simple as it got. Now, I will say that I never did there's guys out there that'll do the chimney sweeps, right? They'll do this. That's their job. So it's always good to do that because you can light a chimney on fire from the inside.
Absolutely. From the inside out. And it's bad, and it sets the house on fire sometimes. It's not good.
Yeah. So don't don't burn pine logs in your fireplace.
Right. Any softwood, really, to be honest. Sounds simple, but it's not. And one way to do it, if you think you have a problem, is just take your fireplace poker and just stick it up in there and scrape it. And if you pull off some black gunk, it's time to have the fireplace swept by a professional. I know you can do it DIY.
I agree with you.
It can be done. But I will tell you what, I'm not sure. I've looked at it, and I mean, I've got several places with fireplaces, and I've looked at having them, looked at sweeping them myself. And by the time I get done with, you have to cover the front of the fireplace, and you have to hook your shop vac up to it. And by the time and then you need a brush, and you got to get up on the roof, and da 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 da. And by the time I get done, I'm like, no. And I'm a DIY guy. I'll do it myself 9 out of 10 times. That's just one that's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So
and I think that goes in the save yourself some aggravation.
it's an aggravation one, absolutely.
Yeah,
because here's the other side. If they're doing it properly and you don't cover the front of that thing, you have a mess like you can't even imagine. I mean, it's a bloody mess.
And there's all kinds of other things that might be, that they're going to take care of. I mean, there's things I'm not a chimney guy, okay, and I know my limitations, and we talk about all these kind of things, limitations and stuff like that. So. But there's all kinds of new fireplaces and flues and all kinds of stuff. Those guys deal with it day in and day out. I don't. I don't want to. It's a dirty job. I don't even like cleaning out my fireplace.
Right.
But,
it's all of that. And then if you don't use your fireplace much, look down your fireplace or look up your fireplace and look for eyes.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because there's animals that like living in in chimneys. Raccoons are one of them. There's a bird called a chimney swift, in case you did not know this. And guess where they will live? In your chimney. That kind of thing. So it's out
Chicago,
there.
we actually had a raccoon come down the chimney and into the house.
Yep. And into the house.
He was walking around in the basement. Actually, he got in that chimney, thank goodness. Yep. Instead of the other chimney that led to the family room and the upstairs, but he got in the one that went all the way to the basement, and you could see his feet marks, and then he went back and climbed back out of there, So I'm like, oh boy, look at that. And that's, and now you're looking around the basement going, I don't want to run into that thing, but he was out of there. Anyways.
So anyway, well, John, the last time that a spaceship landed in your yard, did you try to winterize it, or what did they tell you?
I don't know, but I thought that they said that they looked up your chimney.
I'm not going there, Johnny. I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Okay.
I can't. This is a G-rated show, Johnny. It's a G-rated show. I'm just saying. Anyway. Well, all right, folks, if you like this nonsense we call the Handyman Pros Radio Show, please, once again, like and subscribe to our show, both on YouTube and on the podcast player of your choice. We certainly appreciate it. Help spread the word. If you have any questions, send us an email, questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. We do answer the questions. We had a question last week on insurance that we answered. We did that privately. We're not insurance guys. Johnny, we need to get an insurance guy on the show sometime. But we always answer the questions. Might take us a while, and sometimes they become show topics. So send us questions at handymanprosradioshow.com, and we will answer your questions. So what else we got? With that, we got a Facebook page too. That's it. Yeah.
And we'll see you next time on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.